NASCAR denied Cletus McFarland his shot at Talladega. So what happened next? He turned around and signed a multi-year endorsement deal with one of the biggest names in power sports. But here is the catch, and this catch is massive. This is not just a logo on a car door. This deal has completely changed how his entire operation runs from the ground up, and that is exactly what we are getting into today. His real name is Lawrence Garrett Mitchell, but the world knows him as Cletus McFarland. By April 2026, he had grown his YouTube channel to over 4.6 million subscribers, built on a brand that celebrates horsepower, burnout culture, Crown Vic chaos, and the kind of raw, unfiltered motorsports energy that corporate racing rarely delivers. He owns the Freedom Factory in Bradenton, Florida, formerly known as DeSoto Speedway, where he runs events like the Freedom 500 and the 2.4 hours of Le Mullets. He is not just a content creator, he is a track owner, an event promoter, and a driver with a very specific goal, racing the Daytona 500. Now, the man who first made that dream feel real was Greg Biffle, a NASCAR champion who became, in Cletus's own words, an accidental mentor. The two met during Hurricane Helene relief efforts and bonded over helicopters and Crown Vics before it naturally evolved into racing. McFarland told People exclusively, Greg Biffle. He was a big Polaris partner, and he kinda introduced me to Polaris and brought the Polaris execs to our events. And that's how we met him. He led the way, for sure, for me to become a Polaris fan. In December, Biffle died in a plane crash along with his wife, son, and daughter. That loss hit McFarland hard. All these things I do, I think about him a lot. How much more fun it would be with him, he said. The Polaris partnership that followed is in many ways a direct extension of what Biffle started. But before we get to that deal, you need to understand where Cletus stands as a racing driver, because that context is everything. Through April 2026, he had made just 9 career starts across NASCAR and ARCA, 5 ARCA starts, 2 ARCA East starts, 1 Craftsman Truck Series start at Daytona where he crashed after just 5 laps, and 1 O'Reilly Auto Parts Series debut at Rockingham Speedway driving for Richard Childress Racing. That Rockingham race is where the whole conversation starts to get interesting. The RCR deal itself came together because both sides needed something the other had. Ty Dillon reached out to McFarland on behalf of the organization. RCR wanted access to his massive audience. Cletus wanted proper racing infrastructure and professional development. As RCR Vice President Danny Lawrence put it, he's not just a YouTube personality, he's actually a racer. That was not just a compliment. Lawrence recalled McFarland walking through the engine shop and identifying an R07 block and an SB2, then asking about camber and caster settings. Mark Reilly of Red Jones Racing, who handles Cletus's RKA starts, saw the same thing with data screens. McFarland immediately understood throttle trace data because the software was identical to what he uses in drag racing. The racing knowledge was already there. The experience in sanctioned competition was what needed to grow. At Rockingham, he had 4 spins during the 250 lap race. He got sideways multiple times and ended up 6 laps down, finishing 32nd in a field of 38. But here's what actually mattered. He completed 244 of 250 laps. He did not destroy anyone else's race. And earlier that same day, he had finished 4th in the Arcia East event at the same track. We just had to get to the end, and that's what we did, he said afterward. That was the baseline NASCAR needed to evaluate. And NASCAR looked at that performance and said, not yet. McFarland was denied approval to compete in the O'Reilly Auto Parts Series race at Talladega Superspeedway on April 25th. NASCAR Executive Vice President John Probst was direct about the reasoning. It's not NASCAR saying no, we're just saying we want to see more first, Probst said. When you look back at what we've asked other drivers to do, we're asking him to do something very similar and to show he's progressing. He's on the steep side of the learning curve. We will progress him as fast as we can, but in a very meaningful way that doesn't get him in a bad situation. NASCAR President Steve O'Donnell added that the process would continue race by race. Now, a lot of fans push back on that decision hard, and their frustration is not without logic. Established drivers spin, crash, and wreck each other in NASCAR every single week. McFarland finished a race without causing chaos and still got denied. Dale Earnhardt Jr. publicly said he does not think Cletus is ready for Talladega, which only added fuel to an already loud debate. But Probst made one thing very clear: money and popularity are not factors. If it was just about clicks and dollars, we had an easy decision with Cletus, but it's not about that, he said. It's just making sure that we're doing right for him as a driver and as a human being. And honestly, when you look at the numbers, 9 total career starts, 2 prior crashes at Daytona-level tracks, the caution is not unreasonable, even if the timeline frustrates people. What those same frustrated fans cannot argue with is what McFarland does for viewership. According to a report citing Sports Business Journal's Adam Stern, the Rockingham-O'Reilly race on the CW drew a 0.65 rating and 1.165 million viewers, up 12% in rating and 11% in audience from the comparable race the prior year. Through the first 7 races of the 2026 season, the O'Reilly series was averaging 1.282 million viewers per race, up 3.6% year over year. His ARCA and NASCAR live streams had each approached 1 million viewers. He is not just a name on the entry list, he moves the needle in a measurable, documented way. And that is exactly the kind of audience that made Polaris come calling. On April 7th, 2026, Polaris officially announced a multi-year partnership with Cletus McFarland and his motorsports community. Reed Wilson, president of Polaris Off-Road Vehicles, said it plainly. "We are big fans of Cletus and the community he has built. We couldn't just watch from the outside. We had to be a part of it. He brings a level of energy, passion, and authenticity that reflects what American motorsports is all about." McFarland responded in his own style. "I built my community around freedom, horsepower, and having a good time, and Polaris fits that perfectly. They get the people, they get the spirit. Hell yeah, brother, that's what we're all about." Now here is the catch. This is not a race sponsorship. This is not a logo on a fire suit or a decal on the door panel. Polaris is embedded into the entire Cletus ecosystem. His Freedom Factory operations, his off-road content, his fan events, and his physical equipment on site. The partnership launched with a video of McFarland surprising his Freedom Factory crew with an all-new Polaris off-road fleet. He also received a fully custom RZR Pro R as his personal rig. The equipment upgrades started immediately. That matters because his entire business depends on running events, maintaining facilities, filming content, and keeping operations moving every week. Polaris now has a direct role in how all of that functions. McFarland built his world on independent, unfiltered chaos. That was always the identity. Now one of the largest powersports companies on the planet has fingerprints on the full operation. The vehicles, the events, the fan experiences, the content direction. It fits naturally, but it is still a significant shift in how his brand operates going forward. And while all of this is happening, the racing side of his empire keeps growing too. McFarland purchased a straight-to-rail late model from Port City Race Cars through Rette Jones Racing with a specific plan. He wants to add a pro late model division to his existing Crown Vic race events. "My plan with that deal is to just start my own late model series that will travel with the Crown Vics," he told Short Track Scene. "We do about 6 events a year with the Crown Vics, so I want to start my own little pro late model series on top of that." He already has relationships with RCR, Rette Jones Racing, and Nice Motorsports. The Freedom Factory hosts UARA events with promoter Ricky Brooks. The structure is building layer by layer. Content feeding events, events feeding grassroots racing feeding sanctioned competition, and all of it pointing toward one thing. "The goal is to run the Daytona 500. That was the original reason I started all of this," McFarland said. He also acknowledged that his understanding of the path has changed completely since those early conversations with Biffle. "When I first called him about it, I asked him if we could do it the next year, and he said, well, that's just not possible." Now he understands why, and importantly, his mindset has matured with that understanding. He does not just want to start the Daytona 500, he wants to be competitive when he gets there. Mark Retta summed him up well. He's a guy, he's an entrepreneur. You don't fly helicopters and airplanes, and you don't do all the things he does in a drag car without a little bit of talent. It's just a different kind of talent. Here's what this whole story comes down to. NASCAR denied Cletus McFarland at Talladega, and the story got bigger, not smaller. The Polaris deal arrived. The viewership numbers climbed. The Freedom Factory got a fleet upgrade. A late model series is being built. The racing relationships keep expanding. Usually when a driver gets denied for a race, the momentum stops. With Cletus, it keeps accelerating in every direction at once. And that is what makes this story unlike anything else happening in American motorsports right now.